this is the Thursday, March 11th, 2021 Town of Monroe Planning Board Workshop Meeting. Noreen, if you would please take roll call attendance. Present.
Here. 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 Here.
Here.
Here.
All right, and with that, I will point out the fire exits. There are exits out the doors directly in front of me. There's an exit over here in the foyer to go out toward the parking areas, and another exit in this direction. So with that, let's please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to I was going to see your flag on the flag. All right. First item on the agenda is Verizon. I
think I got it. Yep. Okay.
Hello.
Good evening. Scott Olson from Young Summer for Verizon Wireless. So back on the 25th of February, we submitted a bunch of new information in response to Sean's letter. And something Ashley asked for also. So we've got a revised EAF in the record now, a removal plan, some revised plans. I gave you a copy of the full easement, just redacted for the money terms. And Tectonic put a screening letter into the record to try to show, using the pictures that were taken during, I think it was August of last year, what the existing screening is surrounding the property, so that the board can consider whether any additional screening is going to be required.
So I do have the Verizon signed ZBA decision. And that better? All the conditions.
I think those are.
Okay. Especially get to one has to do with the fact that all the Verizon equipment will color match the water tank. All right, here it is. So condition number 4, the ZBA decision on the variances that were granted, stated that the electronic ground equipment shall be located as advised by the planning board. In no event shall it be located outside the fenced-in area of the water tank. The ground equipment shall be surrounded in all visible directions by shrubbery, landscaping, or other approved concealed methods, and shall be properly maintained in a manner and at such times as to be determined by the town planning board. I had a phone call from the Harriman mayor on which the water tank is located in the Verizon equipment. And he expressed generally, he understood that there were variances granted and conditions issued, and yet we have to balance that with the fact that it's on a water tank. And so, kind of in order of preference, he had indicated that in the best of all worlds, he would prefer nothing, within the area of the water tank.
Correct.
Operationally and for maintenance purposes. He said second to that, his preference would be for structure rather than vegetation, so that if we were going to in some way need to screen it, it'd be better if it was a decorative fence or something of that nature. And then third was some kind of landscaping, something that obviously would it have issues with regard to its growth and then proximity to the tank.
Yep.
And then I guess there was a question whether there was an opportunity to even locate screening somewhere adjacent to or around the tank, but possibly not even on the tank facility and on the tank property. And I don't know if that option exists, but I just wanted to recount my communication with the mayor in Harriman. So with that, Ashley, is there anything further we need to discuss with regard to this particular condition or other conditions that we should be aware of? Oh, hold on. Are you muted? Hold on, Ashley. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear myself. So with this condition, the board will have to figure out what type of screening is necessary for it to screen the ground equipment so that it's not visible from any direction, like that condition said. I know Sean was there and took some photos that might be helpful. It could be, I don't think it has to be something right up against the tank itself. There's already, I think we discussed last time, some landscaping around the perimeter, so that aids in screening, but based on the pictures Sean has taken, I don't think that's going to be enough. So it might be helpful for the board to look at those and figure out what else is necessary to remove that condition. There's a couple other conditions too where the board will need some input from you. I know Sean had addressed some of his memo, but also just as far as some of the timing of maintenance and things like that the ZBA wanted the planning board to weigh in on. So those are things that this board will have to decide if could then be incorporated into the resolution. But I think for this one first, the question is what type of screening, taking into consideration, of course, the village environment concept.
We did have, excuse me, we spoke to Tectonic about possible screening, knowing that was going to be a consideration. And they said that they could put up a three-sided fence. It wouldn't be attached necessarily to the water tank, obviously, but it would screen all three sides of the fence. I don't know how to unmute.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
So, like I said, Tectonic was able to draw up a plan that would have a fence, three-sided fence surrounding the equipment. They were suggesting, the slatted type fence where you can put different colors into whatever color you would want. On their plan, and again, you don't have it, I just wanted that to see if we can do it. They had like green slatted fence. I don't know. Personally, I don't know that green would be my choice necessarily. I would try to match maybe what the tank is for consistency, but obviously that's not my decision, so.
Why don't we put a hold right now on this and then go through any of Sean's comments for this application?
Sure.
And then we can revisit, and go through with the planning board what some of their preferences would be.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my comments were just adding notes to the effect to meet the requirements of the variance. So basically adding notes such as all vehicles servicing the antenna shall park within the bounds of the fenced area on the tower site. I won't read all of them. As Ashley had mentioned, we'll need some input from the board on two specific requirements from the ZBA. The first one will be that they'll require that the antennas and cables be painted on a regular basis. I don't know if the board wants to require some minimum amount of time that they'll need to be repainted. And then the second was the board left it up to the planning, or the ZBA left it up to the planning board as to when they will allow Verizon to maintain the equipment. They had started with between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. on weekdays, Monday through Friday, and with no visits conducted on national holidays except for emergency purposes, which would have to go concurrent with notice to the HOA. So the ZBA wasn't sure if the board wanted to restrict that more or make that less restrictive. Regarding the bulk table, the required height was noted as the maximum required height was noted as 75 feet, which is actually at 50 feet in the LI. And the proposed height was at 75 feet, except that the antenna was at 62 feet. But all this is actually not even required because, according to Ben, the antenna is exempt from the maximum height requirement. So we discussed the fencing and the screening for the equipment. I did take pictures, as Bonnie and Ashley had mentioned. I would recommend that some kind of screening of the equipment be proposed, specifically fencing. That's what the village recommend. There is a required note per the town code for use variances that are granted that would have to be added to the plans. That was the last technical item, and then procedurally, the board previously waived the public hearing, and then I believe Ashley's going to discuss secret tonight.
So let's, I'll bring up images here of the tank, and this is, take them because
George.
Lost Ashley.
Fixed it, but we lost.
Oh, nice.
All right, so this is one shot, and the tank is, if you look at the,
Yes. So that looks like it's just to the right of the dirt access way, if I remember correctly.
If I'm standing in the center of the driveway in that picture.
okay. The transformers are to the right. Correct. Okay. All right. Getting dizzy.
That's straight on. Approximately center. All taken from Bar Lane, but approximately center of the property.
So we were,
Exact to the right, yep. Oh,
so in this instance, the enclosure is going to be sort of to the right, correct, of that white panel?
correct. think that's the furthest right, so basically standing in front of the units, the residential units, looking, yep.
So I guess my reaction is that, again, if we, it seems like it's really opening up particular views when you're close to the access drive or just to the right of the access.
Exactly, that's correct.
And so, best of all worlds, there would be vegetation maybe along that fence line, but the alternative could be to put fencing there. So there was another question you had. Oh, the timeframe.
Right.
So, do you know how often, based on,
1 to 3 times per year, unless something goes wrong.
okay,
And the times that they have in the ZBA conditions, those generally coincide with when, the workers would be there. They don't typically go on Saturdays and Sundays. They're kind of Monday through Friday folks. And again, just normal business hours. So we certainly don't have a problem with that.
so making sure and maintaining the equipment, including if the paint starts to chip or anything of that nature,
Yep.
you don't have an issue with, or going out
A year.
per year?
Per year, yeah, no.
I thought I heard a week.
It used to be they would be out there like a few times a month, but now it's just, it's not required, so it's, 1 to 3 times per year.
I guess my reaction would be okay, and if there's some kind of,
That's to antennas, right?
or we're talking about right,
Just maintaining the equipment.
maintaining the equipment, painting the antennas,
Okay.
just doing that
It-
part of an annual audit.
Could it be something where if it's required, because, not to disparage the quality of the tank, but if you look at it, I don't know when the last time that thing was painted. And the prior plan that we had showed kind of how discolored it was. So it would be like we're painting, we're giving you the Cadillac on the, I don't know, whatever it is, the Pinto, that doesn't exist anymore.
Pacer.
You know what I mean? We have no problem if our stuff becomes faded, but I think paint nowadays is usually pretty durable. We certainly have no problem inspecting it every time we go out there, and if it's required, we'll do it as necessary, but
Right, so I guess the question is more, it's not the matter of inspecting everything, but if there's a mandate to paint it, what that time frame should be.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, I don't know what current exterior paint manufacturers have for their durability, but I would think it's around 3 to 5 years if I was to guess,
That's what I would recommend.
What do you think, Ashley?
Yeah, I would say probably 3 to 5, I think. It could be framed in a way that we would need to have workers when we need it, rather than on 1 to 3 years.
What does everybody else think? As far as when it should,
Appropriate to me.
I'm looking at a picture I took back in the fall, early fall or late summer, and I agree about I think the whole purpose of the way that the ZBA put this design together and came up with this solution was to have the antenna and the wiring disappear as much as possible into this. Frankly, my concern is you paint it too often, it's gonna be, it'll be the color that the
white on
tank
brown.
was at one time, but that's not what the tank is
It'll
now. And
It'll stand out.
I almost feel like there should be a provision that anytime the tank is repainted, it get repainted so that it stays, in line with where the tank is.
So
I mean,
I-
I don't know if the tank has ever been repainted, or if it's painted, it may be painted annually, and this is just the
To
nature
that
of how it
effect,
weathers.
to that effect, Jeff,
Yeah.
the way I worded or maybe it was I took it straight from the ZBA determination, but I said the antennas and cables shall be painted on a regular basis to ensure that the paint surfaces continue to match the facade of the tank. So if the tank was ever painted, the antennas would have to be painted to match.
That makes a
Build
lot of
that
sense to
into
me.
the overall
Right.
resolution.
That's
Then we can just add,
reasonable
but,
to us.
but not, not to exceed every 3 years.
Do you think the minimum 3 years that we could, or, I mean, Jeff made a good point that we don't want to need it too frequently?
I'd be okay with 5, especially if it turns out that they're going to paint the tank and it has to get painted anyway. If that provision's in there, that, to me, that's the safeguard. So
Yep.
that takes care of any interim, situation. But 5, unless, if everything chips off, then we might ask you out there, but.
That'd be different.
At 5, I
Sure.
think 5 is okay, if
The
everybody
idea
else
to
is-
have a color that matches the tank, I mean, we're going to have similar, right?
Yeah, we're going to have color matching.
That's what we're going to try to color match to the best we can. Our visual folks had some problems, like I said, when I saw some of the Sims. I'm like, well, it matches part of the tank, but not all, but they're going to do the best they can.
So, if they decide to paint it brown one day or green one day, then they just have to color match it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, 5 years? 5 years sound good?
Fine.
Okay, and we'll let Ashley draft up a resolution that if there's something, again, a color change or circumstances that warrant it, it can be done sooner than 5 years.
Understood.
Okay, that takes care of that. So let's move on to talking about tree shrubbery. So Verizon's preference is to have a fence.
Oh, for the record, Verizon's preference is
Yeah,
nothing. But who am I? No. But yes, it's a fence because they also know that the village prefers the fence. They really don't want any type of organic material. I know they're worried about how the roots could impact next to the water tank. You also have, we would prefer not to have the organic because our people that go out there and work, it's going to be confined a little bit. Honestly, there's a concern about nests, bees' nests and stuff like that. We don't want to have them deal with that because a lot of times that's where the bees go in the shrubbery.
So what are everybody's thoughts when I start down by Jason?
Like a cinder block, just kind of concealer wall that matched the same color as the water tank work.
Cinder block. I'm not a construction person, and I've never done that, so I don't know. Well, what Tectonic had shown to us was a chain link fence with slats to try to match, but that's what they were thinking. I don't. Cinder block is. I honestly don't. Yeah, I'm not able to answer that. I'm sorry. Just because I don't know. It's the construction guys might kill me.
I think the question in my mind about this, chain link in general, not a big fan, especially if you put the fuzzy slats in it, they're great. I prefer something that's, wood that's painted, but having said that, I don't know if that's an issue with being near electrical equipment. I don't know if there's a requirement that it has to be something other than wood or something combustible. Would it be like a plastic fence? Then they're.
Yep, correct.
But anyway, Jeff, what are your
Okay.
thoughts?
Well, I'm actually curious about with the ground-based equipment, how much ventilation does it require? If it's the kind of equipment that not only generates heat, but has to stay cool, I'm concerned about too solid of a structure being around there and interfering with that. My concern is that if the equipment is running in an overheated state, it's going to require more maintenance, which is going to require more trips from Verizon, which is what the folks on Bar Lane are trying to minimize anyway. I kind of feel like one thing would defeat the purpose of the other. I think, I'm in favor of screening. I'm not necessarily adverse in this situation to chain link because it's a property surrounded by chain link anyway, so it's a little bit in keeping with the site. And if we found a I don't know, beige, taupe type of, something in the line of the, like green wouldn't necessarily be my preference either.
That was my comment, too.
That might work well when we're on leaf, but in the winter, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. I'd rather see a more organic cream, or even a brown would be.
Did the ZBA, remind me, did the ZBA decision indicate that the fence should be the same color? Also, it
is.
doesn't have to color match, right? It's the
Not to my-
actual,
I don't,
The decision says that, the equipment has to be surrounded in all visible directions by shrubbery, landscaping, or other approved concealed methods.
okay, so it's not a color thing, because, you know, I like, if we were to do chain link, I always like black vinyl.
okay.
I just think that looks better than plain old chain link fence.
Oh, sure.
And then, if the color doesn't matter, I don't know if, I can't recall if I've seen black slats.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to,
Yeah, I can't think of that. So let me pass it down. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
Curious about the fencing. Is this on the outside perimeter or directly around the building? Where's this fence going?
So it would be right around our equipment, which is inside the perimeter of that existing chain link fence. We're not allowed to put anything outside that chain link fence. When it was originally approved back in 2000-ish, there was a condition, no development outside the chain link fence.
My concern is, security in terms of being able to see what's going on in the property. You wouldn't want a total screen, so chain link fence.
yeah, I mean, the chain link
Fine
fence
with
already
me.
exists around the entire property with the gate that's locked all the time.
I think we could do,
Nice choice.
What's the price of that? Oh, wow.
that's decorative.
It's
I
only
was just
three-
trying to see examples of,
Oh, yeah, there you go.
so you can get,
I've seen black slats before.
here's black with beige.
I agree. I mean, I prefer the
Real
vinyl
look
slats
at the
over
real
the fuzzy slats.
Here are the two slats, and it comes in different colors.
Is that a requirement to have it?
I don't think it's security, it's for aesthetics.
It's really to block the equipment, the view of the equipment.
My only reaction is for us to put something that I don't think would look bad with the black slats and black. But if the neighborhood suddenly was like, oh my God, this is so different from,
Yeah.
the water tower itself. But to me, that might actually be, in some ways, less visible than having a big white box around it. Lisa, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think Verizon made a good point. So fencing seems more practical, and I don't mind the chain link fence. I almost would like to see through it. I don't know, I don't like where you can't see, if it's blocked off, students might, not students, sorry, kids might want to climb it, or, just, I don't know. I think some measure of visibility through the fence would be a good idea on my part. But I think the chain link fence is fine.
I think a chain link fence is okay, and last year when I was shopping for a fence, all of the fence professionals told us that the black slats are the ones that make the fence disappear to the eye. So if you're going to have to do some kind of screening, that might be better.
I always say it's like when you're a little overweight, you wear darker colors.
There you go. I should be in black
That's
right
what
now.
I do. So, Pat,
Well, I think since we're talking about aesthetic values here, we probably ought to take a look at what's there in the neighborhood. Complements. Flats.
Pat, you need to talk a little more.
Looking at some of the pictures in the buildings here, it looks like there's a lot of brown and yellow. So That's all.
Gonna do chain link, vinyl coated.
Yeah, I think it has to be. So it sounds like, in general, that everybody's amenable to a chain link fence,
Okay,
but one that is preferably vinyl coated.
okay,
And maybe you could, if you look into manufacturers, give us an idea of some colors, since they do come in different colors. And in the meantime, if we could get out, take a look at what's in the neighborhood and see what might fit in terms of color. I'm okay with black, but let's see if there's something that works better, as far as a color. And then, we could wrap that into ultimately our resolution.
okay.
Ashley, do you want to, so I'm going to take this down. Do you want to talk a little bit more? At this point, we have Sean's comments. Where are we in process? We have to look at the seeker form?
Just one more
Oh, sure, sorry.
item. I don't think we ever finalized the hours of operation. The 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I mean,
For the
we
visit-
talked about it, but I don't know if we finalized that.
That for the visit,
Correct. Yep.
maintenance?
Well, yeah, for maintenance, not only of the painting, but of the actual equipment, upkeep of the equipment.
So,
Any site visit and construction, so there's two, I guess, actually. There's any site visit and construction, the ZBA said 8 to 5 on weekdays, or obviously minor restrict.
essentially, they, or if this is what you're saying, site visits and regular business hours, Monday through Friday. Purposes may be. The only thing I would say is that it might be hard to do notice to the HOA, so I think they should have to try and do that, but
Exactly, and we have that in the easement agreement.
Okay.
Because they want notice for that,
Okay.
and then we said, we'll do the best we can, but do you want us to call you at 3 a.m. if we're going to be out there? And that really never does happen, but, and so we addressed it that way, yeah, we will endeavor to do that.
So, do you take any exception to this concept of doing the construction and
No.
everything?
No, the way it was written, no, it's
Monday through
fine.
Friday, 8 to 5,
Yeah.
no holidays, national holidays?
Yep.
Everybody good with that?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay.
Before we move on, at the last meeting, we talked about lighting, that you would add lighting to the plan. I was just wondering if that was done, and
I believe we did. The lighting's only going to be on the equipment itself. And again, it's put on a timer. I have to double check.
security lighting that will go on with motion, or?
No, because we used to have that, but then if you get a squirrel that runs by, it could, maybe it likes to see its shadow and keeps running back. No, but that's a problem. So we have it on a switch. So if it's required, the operations people will come in, turn it on, and it's on a timer so that it will go off within an hour so that they don't forget it. And if it goes off while they're there, they just flip the switch up again. So that it's guaranteed to go off and doesn't stay on all night.
Say, with regard to the plan itself, is that the scale for the equipment shed is a little on the small side to be able to see details. So, I'm looking at the site plan, last revised 2/25/21, and it's T1 through C4.
Okay.
And in, kind of scrolling through these, it looks like the equipment shed is, primarily shown. The scale is, I guess the largest you can see it at is on sheet C2. And I think it'd be useful to blow that up a little bit more.
I can certainly ask them to do that. You can look at C3.
Yeah, that's like an elevation of the equipment.
Yeah, that shows you the scale in relation to the water tank, and it shows you the antennas. That's why they, but they can certainly blow that up if they don't have it yet.
I just enlarge it a little more because then we're going to add the fence to
To see the
it.
ground equipment? That's what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, just to blow up that area. So that lease area seems very tight.
It is.
Is that a requirement of the ZBA's decision, or that's by design?
Just by design, we don't want to take up more room than we need. And for these types of facilities, we really don't need a lot of ground equipment. But we did confirm we still have room for the fence.
So you're essentially going to drive up to the to the fence at the water tower, and then whatever additional maintenance goes on, I guess the construction vehicles will have to enter within that perimeter.
Yeah.
But after that, they're going to walk to the equipment area, or are they going to drive into the equipment area?
Oh, they're most likely just walk. It's really not, it's not very far at all.
Okay.
It's, having been there, it's,
Relatively small.
it's only like 200 by 200 total. The water tank is about 62 feet in width, give or take. So if you could just tell, it's really not that far.
I didn't know if it mattered visually, whether you have like essentially double doors to open up to the equipment panel. And it, like I said, it's very tight. I can't tell what the dimension is around the equipment, if they can get around it. That's why I'm talking about
Yeah,
the
there's-
scale. Is there sufficient space around it?
I remember looking at that, it'll be tight, but there will be room. We had the engineer look at it, who designs these, and that's what we said. Before we got into the discussion, I said, there's not a lot of room, so can we get back there? He said, yes, you can.
I didn't know if it's a difference visually, if the fence, instead of having the double fence off the side of the longest dimension, if instead it could be put on the back side, and have one fence door.
Okay. And I don't know, because the backside is 6 feet, so they probably could, you mean, when you say backside, there's not going to be a fence against the tank, it's going to be kind of towards?
Yeah.
Okay, it does go towards the back, I'm sorry.
It's sort of the backside, as opposed, what I'm referring to, where they are
Yep.
now, I'd refer to as this, like, the side,
Yes, got it.
putting it on the backside of,
My guess is, but I'll ask, my guess is because you have more length, and they want to access
They
that.
wanna access
so
through
they can
there.
open that up.
yeah, that's
Just
why I was
because it
wondering.
is so tight.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, how tight it is.
That's, I'll certainly ask Steve.
Yeah, before you do that, what does everybody else think? Does it matter, or it's a wash, or, I just didn't know with the fence, if the opening, would be less visible, does it matter? I'm just throwing it out there. No? No strong feelings? No strong feelings. It's just me. If I'm only one, then that's okay. I would let it be.
Okay. I will not ask.
Planning board members, any other comments on this application? No. All right, so, Ashley, next steps?
Sure, so I did prepare for this evening, proposed secret part 2 and part 3 form of the next step. If you wanted to consider that tonight, or do an uncoordinated review for this application. The ZBA previously did their own uncoordinated review as well, and they had issued a negative portion of the use variance. If I read it out to you, I just had a couple other comments.
Sure. What?
Scott mentioned the easement, so I'm reviewing that easement. I might have some questions or revisions for him, we can discuss that in the future, we're going to discuss that tonight. I think I went over all the other comments, I'm not sure if, a while back, I pointed the same wireless consultant that the ZBA used. I don't know whether they had any additional comments for the planning board application
This is the short environmental assessment form where we review the potential impacts associated with the site plan for the Verizon Wireless proposed antenna and equipment. So I'm going to scroll down. So Ashley took a stab at a first draft, so we're going to review it and see whether the answers, we agree with them. And the two columns are no or small impact may occur, or moderate to large impact may occur, and typically you don't check off moderate to large impact unless it exceeds some kind of threshold that's typically in the so first question is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? Not the comp plan, and you receive variances, so at this point, from my perspective, I think you're okay. And if anybody disagrees with any of these, just speak up. 2, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? Not really. This is just an equipment pad. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? I think that was addressed to a large extent through the ZBA review process. And obviously the proposed site plan is going to incorporate modifications to ensure that the antenna and its visibility will not impact the character of the community. So I think with those additions, there's a small to no impact. Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics to cause establishment of a critical environmental area? This is not within a critical environmental area, so there is no impact. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? With the exception of construction traffic, which is temporary, and the maintenance, which is going to be limited, that would be a small impact. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy, and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? This is a project that requires energy to operate. And I'm sure you're going to use whatever equipment is necessary, and it'll use the energy it will use, but it's not going to be significant or adverse.
It's typically what a common house would use with a 200 amp service. Yeah, so.
So that seems de minimis. Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies? Or public-private wastewater treatment utilities? It certainly doesn't demand any wastewater treatment, and it won't demand any water supplies. Actually, looking at it from this perspective, it is proposed on a water supply tank, and clearly if Harriman doesn't mind it being located there, then I wouldn't think that it's an impact to water supply. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Again, I think we've addressed concerns, community character concerns visually, and otherwise there really aren't any significant historic, et cetera, resources in the area. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? No, it's in an area that's already disturbed within the water supply property. Will the proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Is drainage addressed in some way, or is there any need, given the small size of the area disturbance?
I think it's only like 9/11 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Significant.
Okay, so it's like a patio. Okay. So that's very small. Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? We don't believe so. It's not going to generate, anything that needs to be remediated, et cetera.
No.
Right.
No.
All right, so with that, no questions in part 2 are answered moderate to large. The property is currently being improved with a public utility structure, which already has an antenna. An applicant proposed to add 2 small cell antennas on the existing water tank. Proposed use is consistent with existing use of the property. An applicant has been granted a use variance to allow the proposed wireless communication facility. Further, the facility has been designed to minimize visual impacts. Color is exterior of the water tank, height of the water tank or ground equipment will be screened. Quick question, the fence, although this is an aside, the fence height, it's 6 foot, or what's the height? Yeah.
6 foot.
And is that sufficient to cover up to the top of the equipment or most of the equipment? And then I'm not even
The one-
sure whether our law allows something that's taller than 6 feet.
It should, but I will just double check, but it should.
The one electrical cabinet's 8 foot tall, so.
So,
But that's, yeah. I mean, you can, I don't know what your code says about an 8-foot fence.
so maybe between now and the next meeting, Ashley, if we could look into whether the code, unless you already know, does the code have a limit on fence height?
I presume it does, but I don't know offhand. It also depends where you are on the site. So this is, usually if you're not in an fire yard, it might be a little higher.
Right.
So, you might be out of that something there. I'll take a look at that.
So what does the board feel about a 6-foot high fence as opposed to 8 feet if the equipment, the cabinet exceeds 6 feet? Should we think of maybe looking at what 8 feet would be like, or leave it at 6?
Say is that the base of the tank is probably higher than everything around it, so that the 6 foot may block the top of the 8 foot tall cabinet.
At point.
Because you're below, every time you view it, you're at a lower elevation. So the fence in front of the cabinet would block it behind.
I see what you mean.
Right, depending on how you're viewing it. Either
The
you
angle
may or,
from which, yes.
if the tank is in the background, you're going to notice the tank. But if you're looking, depending on how you're looking at it,
Yeah.
you may see just out toward the woods, so then you might see it. So, well, I think it's something we can think about, and it's something that can be added to the resolution if it's a change, but we don't have to decide tonight, but give some thought to whether you think 8 feet would be appropriate or not. Okay? All right, so,
We'll be getting, they're going to be submitting also more details as far as, because you do have the architectural review. So I believe they said they'd be submitting more details on color and fencing materials, all that, but I just wanted to make sure.
absent having that information, is it still reasonable? Is it okay to proceed with a negative declaration?
I mean, I think it is, you're saying that it will be screened, you're going to require it to be, but you could also wait until the next meeting if you want to see what that looks like.
I don't think it's going to be, it's not like you're going to come back with hot pink.
No.
Bring the light in.
So,
Unless you want that, but we've painted,
well, yeah, depending on where it
on
is.
towers, we've been told to paint clouds on them.
Okay.
And we tried not to laugh, and we said, well, we really don't think you should do that. And they said, we really do think you should. We did it. And a year later, they came back and said, could you repaint it? And we said, no.
Yeah,
it's too
I've seen
expensive.
the two-tone monopoles
Yes,
also. Yeah.
Sometimes, but we try to,
Make
people
people
have been doing
happy.
it for a long time. We really try to make it look the best it can.
Okay.
Ultimately, it's up to the board, though.
I'm okay just to, procedurally move along to issue a negative declaration based on the Part 2 and Part 3 that were drafted for us. Everybody's good with that? All right. So would someone please make a motion to issue, that the planning board issue a negative declaration for the Verizon wireless facility to be located on the water tank adjacent to Bar Lane in the town of Monroe.
Excuse me,
Would have something to say? Did you?
Ward, I'll let you speak. It's not a public meeting, but do you want to? Okay. I can't hear you with the mask, sorry.
Ward Broward Conservation. My question is, what are you going to do with the nuisance vegetation that inevitably invades these things, such as poison ivy, bittersweet, et cetera? How do you keep that under control? You do that through chemical or mechanical means. And about the height of the fence, I've learned over the years, if you do mechanical means, you can take that 6 foot, hold it up off the ground a foot, then you can get weed whack underneath the thing. It makes it easier maintenance. That's points from past experience.
Thank you.
And they generally, as part of their 1 to 3 times per year, they go out there and they take care of that to make sure. So you're not going to have vines growing or anything like that.
Of that nuisance vegetation.
No, they don't want it there for that. They don't want the look of it.
They don't want any vegetation there.
They don't. No, they don't. And
Okay.
they don't want poison ivy because they don't want their, employees to get that.
Okay.
So they do that. They take care of that regularly.
Thank you, Ward. All right. I think I'd asked if someone could make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Someone second, please?
I'll second.
Okay. Noreen? Aye.
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 Anthony Vaccaro,
Aye.
Lisa McQuaid.
Aye.
With that, Planning Board has issued a negative declaration. So we will, in the interim, you'll be sending us some, materials, information, colors. We'll have to do our architectural review. And then, Ashley, do you think you're ready that you could prepare a draft resolution for our next meeting? Sure. Okay. And so, just no, yes, next month.
What's that? Because this is the workshop meeting, but I had it on my calendar, there's a meeting next week.
Yeah, we do workshop,
Okay,
and then you'll go to the regular meeting next month.
next month, so,
Yep.
okay, in April.
Yep, so sometimes we move it around depending on the load and who's able to be on which agenda.
Okay,
But we'll have a resolution done, and in the meantime, you could submit information, materials, and give us some ideas.
okay,
We'll go from there.
yeah. No, that, actually, I've got 2 meetings scheduled for the next year meeting, so that works out well.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Hard copies of the paper.
Yeah, I wanted hard copies. We only got them today, so when they got here earlier?
Did they get here on submission date?
Yeah, we make sure.
Yeah, so, call us and let us know so we can pick them up for
Yeah.
sure, if
So
you
I'll have
didn't.
them FedExed.
Do you also provide PDFs?
Yeah, I always get, you should all get the PDF.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, that's something that you get and you send around, right? It's more the hard copies. We have to come in and get them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to come in and get them, I can put them up in the business.
Yeah, just remind us, so that they're here. So, okay?
Yeah, sounds
Thank you.
good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is DG Management. George, I didn't hear you. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, John Queenan from Lincoln Tully for the applicant. It's okay. I don't know what's anymore. We're before you tonight just with an update of where we are.
Okay.
We submitted a plan set that has started to incorporate really a final architectural footprint. Those architecturals have come to a point at this time that they'll be submitted for the next submission, which would be for next month. We need to do that in order to ascertain, the grading on the site, the elevations, and that plays into, obviously, the final preparation of the site cross-sections and the SWIP. So it's all being tied together. So if you notice on the plan, we've gotten more specific, I'll say, boxes for these units, the one-family and the two-family. We've adjusted some of the grading, but now that we've got the final footprints, those will be submitted to you for next month with the final grades. We will also have that cross-section that we discussed at the January meeting from 208 and I'll say the Orange and Rockland Park, that view shed through there, because I'll have the final elevations of the proposed buildings, and we'll tie that all in together as one. There's really two main issues that I'd like to just go over with the board tonight, and Sean has touched on both of them in his comments, so I don't know if you want me to go through those issues or just go through Sean's, because we'll hit them at the same, either way.
Why don't, Sean, you introduce the comments, and then if you want to respond?
There's a lot of technical items that I don't necessarily have to address. The first one was just cleaning up the bulk table. There's just a couple discrepancies. One of the larger items was, we're still not clear as to how the lots are going to be divided in the open space and the existing Orange and Rockland easement. The boundary isn't clear there, so that'll have to be addressed.
They'll all, everything, the open space, the easement will all be owned by Lot 1. Or
By Lot 1.
the overall HOA will take that as common area. So the Lot 1 where the stormwater management area is, the easement line is there, but there's no lot line there. So that actually will wrap around all of the other lots.
I think we'd have to check, and maybe Ashley knows, but I don't know if one of the lots can own the open space.
That's why I said, yeah, so for right now, I have it shown as Lot 1, so that not everyone does. But ultimately, that open space will be owned by the HOA when that's created.
Okay. I think one of the items that John's going to touch on is the shared driveway for lots 8 and 9.
John, can we?
Sure.
Second, so, John, did you say, so all of the open space is going to be on Lot 1?
Correct. The way I have it set up right now, everything is just on Lot 1. We didn't add all the other lots to the open space. We can, but we didn't.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I think the preference is always to try and keep it on,
Correct.
fewer than more lots, because the potential for someone to go into the open space area is greater.
Yes.
If it's over more lots. But I thought you said if it's on proposed Lot 1, that the open space would still be owned by the HOA?
Correct, because the two-family lots will be homeowners associations. So there's going to be HOAs created for those lots that have multiple family dwellings.
The HOA is going to own the lots, or they're going to be individually owned?
Individually owned, but you're going to see, it'll be like a zero lot line that goes through there. And there'll be common areas associated with those HOAs. So for instance, just take a lot with a two-family dwelling on it. You're going to have an HOA that owns all the property. It's one HOA that contains it for the two units.
Are you saying also that the HOA is going to own the single-family dwelling units?
Yes, because there might, depending on how they set it up, there could be an overall HOA to encompass the open space areas.
My experience, there's no reason why an HOA has to own the properties at all. They can be individually owned, and then the common, and I don't typically see single families and two families owned by HOAs, unless it's like, multifamily dwellings, or it could be townhouses on common land but then you don't see all the lots the way they're shown. I think that's what's confusing me, that,
Yeah, you're not seeing the zero lot line. You're not seeing the divide.
yeah, well, and oftentimes you'll see, like with a condominium development or a townhouse development that's on common,
Yeah,
you know,
have
not fee simple.
lots, correct.
Right, that, you know, or the townhouse, there may be a fee simple lot underneath the townhouse and the rest is common. But you can also have townhouses that have all common land that they're
Correct.
sitting on. I think what's throwing me here is that these are single-family lots and two-family lots, and it has the appearance of being individually owned, not HOA owned. So, I don't know if you want to interject or have thoughts about that, Ashley?
Well, I need to go over that with the
Well, it just
applicant.
goes back to classifying the units as the multiple dwellings. I'm just gonna go to that definition. I thought that's why, that triggered a requirement for some common ownership there. Yeah, the term multiple dwelling, includes semi-detached, single-family dwellings, tiny homes, townhouses, duplex buildings, which develop these solar rented individually, provided that a common area is retained by homeowners or condominium association, or by the property owner for the exclusive benefit of the residents of the multiple dweller. So, if the open space is going to be all on, if it's all on lot one, and that's one of the two families, it could be retained by one of the private homeowners for the benefit of both of them. But just touching on that now, there's two open space areas. Is it all going to be, the entire thing is going to be lot one?
Correct.
I think for drafting, or at least, and it may show correctly on a, you know, appropriately on a different sheet, but on the first sheet, because there's a dotted line going along the backs of lots
Yeah.
1, 2.
That's the easement. That's the easement. line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, and I appreciate that's the easement. If that's solid, and then the dotted, you know, proposed lot 1, I think it might read
I-
a little better.
You're 100%. I'm seeing it now. I can see where the discrepancy is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
But it is
Oh.
intended that lot one wouldn't have a lot line at the rear there, so it would open up.
and then I think even though we're still determining, or you're getting a variance from the ZBA for the amount of open space,
Correct.
because we've determined that the easement can't be open space, right?
That's correct.
So I guess it's okay the way that it's shown. It looks funny because there's two places for the open space, and even though that's all lot 1, you're showing an area that's not open space, but it's because it's in the easement area.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, somebody has to
Okay,
own it.
okay. So, sorry, for interrupting, Sean, I
Yeah,
just
no,
want to
that's fine.
understand the HOA.
Yeah.
So you're going to talk to your client, they can be privately owned, you know, it's just the common open space can be HOA.
Correct. Now,
Okay.
I'll go over with them exactly what they're doing.
Yeah,
And it doesn't have to be based on that definition. It could still be, as long as it's a common area maintained for the exclusive benefit of those private dwellings. It doesn't have to be an HOA, which might make more sense than just going through that and saying,
Okay.
we're proposing a public road, right?
Yes.
I would imagine that there's actually very little need for an HOA other than that definition possibly generating a need for an HOA.
Well, I'm not sure how the individual units get created, that's all, specifically for the two-family. But I'll go over that in detail. I'll provide a written response to how we're going to handle that.
I guess it could be,
That's, yeah,
okay.
all right.
Yeah, if you need to reach out to Ashley, you can talk a little about the ownership aspect of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sean.
All right, so the one issue that I know John wants to discuss tonight is the shared access between 8 and 9, lots 8 and 9. You know, we had previously identified that the town code prohibits the shared driveways between the two, and Ben's confirmed that, so I don't know if, John, you want to take it?
Yeah, so we had proposed a common driveway and parking area between lots 8 and 9, which are the lots, when you're first coming up the road on your left. Sean and Ben reviewed it, got back to us and said that common areas aren't allowed. So what we're doing right now is a redesign of that. That will take the common area out of there. We will have separate parking and access for each of those lots. But what that does, and what the applicant would like to request that the board would consider, is an increase in impervious surface on those lots from 30% to 35%, because we have to basically have 2 driveways and 2 parking areas on each of those lots. So what that does, based on the size of the lot, is it ticks up our impervious coverage. Now, in the zoning code, I believe the board is allowed to increase the development coverage in a cluster by up to 50% of what was allowed. I believe that's how it's written. So we would be asking for a 5% increase on those 2 lots in that area, because we're separating the access. And because we can't really park in the front, we can't park in the front yard, our driveways are getting longer and we're swinging around to put the parking on the side, essentially, is how it's working out.
With lots, other than those 2 parking spaces?
Now, all of these units are designed, they all have 2-car garages.
Okay,
So these are all driveways that lead to 2-car garages. And what you're seeing in the front are all the turnaround areas coming out of the garage.
so, but those 2 units, though, were designed without garages?
That's correct.
Okay, but now are you going to incorporate garages?
We're going to incorporate a garage. We believe we can do it on Lot 9, which is the corner lot.
Okay,
But Lot 8, no. We would keep the driveway and put the parking on the side.
incorporate it? The configuration?
Incorporate garages for Lot 8 because of the grading.
What's happening with,
Well, essentially, all of the garages are garage unders. And on that lot, there's no garage under. Otherwise, we'd have to swing a driveway all the way around the back.
Okay.
And then pave the entire back to get under. Because it's high in the front and drops in the back. So we didn't think that would be desirable, so we came up with the common parking plan. Unfortunately, it's not allowed to have common shared driveway, I guess. So when we break it apart, Lot 8 would stay the same, except the driveway moves over wholly on Lot 8, and Lot 9 we've redesigned to have driveways, because we can come in at a lower point, closer to where the road is just bending. But what that does is that pushes us above that 30% threshold. We're at like 34% because of the extra impervious surface for the driveways.
So the cluster does allow in 5721.7 C8 that the planning board can waive up to an additional 50%. So basically going from 30% max coverage to 45, and they're only asking for 35%. There is a SWIP will be a SWIP for the project, so, the stormwater will be managed for peak runoff and for water quality, so.
And it would,
and ultimately, it's only for those 2 lots?
that's correct.
Okay, so you're not asking for the 35 for all the lots, it's just for those 2?
Correct.
Board members, what do you think? You okay? Jeff?
I just have a question about, so, maybe I am thinking of another project where that was under consideration. So for us to be able to do some kind of an increase to coverage, wasn't that in exchange to additional stormwater improvements and that kind of thing?
So I think I'm recalling the project that you're thinking of. That project did not require a SWIP, so they implemented stormwater practices to help let them get that additional, coverage.
All right, so because there's going to be a SWIP with this,
Just a little on that project, it was in the watershed overlay, so that's why that had a separate requirement as well as the watershed overlay district.
all right, thank you.
Not sure. The applicant asking for a waiver to go above the existing planning board allowance or zoning code?
Is it a waiver?
It's not a waiver.
It's not a waiver necessarily, it's really, so because you're pursuing a cluster subdivision, your cluster regulation will allow you to
So it's discretionary, it's not a waiver, it's just part of our cluster review.
But what I'm hearing is that we are allowed to increase it by 50% of what is currently allowed, and they're actually asking for beyond that 50%? Oh, okay.
So they're asking for, so it could be increased up to 45, so it's 30% allowed, and they're looking for a total 35%. And you can increase it up to 45%.
Okay, thank you. I don't have an issue.
Lisa? Remember, you have to talk into the mic. The plans, you're very far away.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. John?
I have no objection to the request.
Okay.
I have no objection as well.
Okay. I don't either. I would be curious to see if you could get garages still in some way. And I'm not, just to look at it, just see if,
No,
you
we'll
know.
definitely look at it. The only thing that we would do is I'd have to push that building back farther, so that would, to get me the room in the front. But I'll take a look at it and see if the grade works. It's just, that's really the only lot that is first floor road level, and then it drops in the back, where all the other lots are the complete opposite.
Now, I know the rendering may not be topographically based,
No.
but it's interesting. I figured you'd have that reaction, but it's funny because if you look at it, those two units,
Yeah, no.
they have it to the back.
Yeah.
So that's why,
This
you
is-
get that impression.
This is,
Plus,
this is from Florida. It's,
Where-
from Florida, like the Everglades, it's dead flat.
oh, that's, okay,
I wish I could build like this.
okay.
No. This was generated
Well,
by.
Having said that, I will say, we're a little, again, we'll let Sean finish, but I like the articulation they did here.
Okay.
So, trying to have different forms and maybe even contour a little to the land.
Yeah.
It doesn't look blocky, and I think that's a good thing.
Okay, good.
The only thing we have to be careful of is just to stay within our, not to have ultra-tall buildings, tall dwelling units, to be reasonable with height.
Correct, and I think we'll get there on the next one. You'll see, we've set all these into the hill.
Okay,
So there, you won't have a full 3 stories or, 2.5 stories just out of the ground. It's going to be recessed in the hill.
yeah, there are a couple of homes that are on Scunamunk and kind of dotting right in the village of Monroe near there,
Yeah, no,
and they look really tall.
yeah, these, I think you'll be happy when you see the cross-section of what we've done.
Okay,
I think we're not just putting them on top of a plateau and just going up from there. We're actually putting them in and then grading around, so it looks like it blends right in.
Sean, do you want to?
Sure. We're going to need a SWIP. Frank Getchell's review well testing plan. We're going to need both of those, prepared and reviewed in order to proceed with seeker. So, and then for county planning, we were due to the line nearby as well as 208, proximity to 208, and we'll have to refer it to the Village of Monroe. But I think we should wait until we know that we can get water out of the wells, and, so that they don't need to get water from the Village of Monroe. So I think ultimately Orange County Department of Health for approval on the wells and the major subdivision. So.
And I keep forgetting, did we get a response back from New York State DEC? Did we send it to, we sent the lead agency to DEC?
What we had.
I believe
We
you
have?
did.
Recall, Ashley, if we have DECs?
We didn't get any responses, and you had assumed the agency a while back. What you did, you had sent it to them, and I haven't seen anything on that.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that because they go through the various permits. They'll tell you about the species, and then they'll also say, whether it should be referred to SHPO, et cetera. So I'm kind of surprised we haven't gotten, they have that standard letter that they used to send out. Now they do it in sort of an email format. But I don't recall seeing that for this project.
I haven't seen it either. We will need SHPO because we need
SWIP.
a permit from the DC for both sewer and stormwater. So
Right.
We will need it.
So, just with SHPO, if you do it, once you do it, to include as a contact person Noreen, so that she sees all the correspondence that goes in.
Okay. I will add Noreen because we've already uploaded to the system, to the CRIS system.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to see what's submitted.
Okay.
Well, the board would like to see what's submitted.
Sure. Yeah, I can give you a copy of that.
Ashley, do you have comments?
Not many, I think they were pretty much touched on. I mean, there was all the things that you had asked for previously when we were forward with the secret process. They were still waiting for a bunch of guys. John had mentioned in the beginning that there were still things that were going to be submitted for the next meeting or one of the next meetings. It does need to go to the county, so I don't believe it's on yet. If you want to refer that or have John submit an extra copy next time, I can just email us the copy to the county. I have a complete set of everything.
Yeah, I think for the next go-around, you're getting closer and closer, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't
You
have
know,
a problem to wait I think another month. Now that I have the architecturals,
Okay,
will be much.
we'll put the package and then send out. Okay, so let's target next month for a referral.
Okay, perfect.
And then it, you know, the reality is if there's a major change or anything happens, you know, it just gets referred back if it's necessary, but let's see if we can
Correct.
send it out.
The only other issue was, one of Sean's comments refers to not having the 35-foot rear yard setback for lots, basically 2 through 5, essentially. It's because we had discussed that previously, because those lots were against the easement. We had a 25-foot rear setback, so I just we had gone over that several times, that we were providing 25 for those lots, not 35.
I'll have to,
Okay. All right,
we'll take a look at that.
okay. And then.
I guess ultimately the board can reduce that rear yard setback because of the cluster. And again, you do have that, what is it, 150-foot wide easement to the rear, so.
I think in the end, we always want to have a reasonable area, you know, that's privately held for the kids to be out, you know, in the yard. Because in this instance, they're not going to really play, or they shouldn't go into the easement area.
Well, it's going to be deceiving because the power lines are probably another 75 feet away from that. So you got close to probably 150 feet till you get to that. So.
Are you allowed to landscape in there at all?
No.
I don't think so, right?
No.
Yeah.
If you do, they'll probably come through and cut it down.
All right, Ashley?
I think that was it. Basically, when more information is needed, I'll be able to move over to the secret process, and that will then be able to get back to the DEA.
Yes. And then I just have one last item.
Okay.
On the well testing, the health department has reviewed the protocol. They have signed off on it.
Water supply
On the water
testing?
supply for the
Okay.
testing. We are waiting for the town's consultants to do the same, your hydrogeologist to do the same.
Retained frame last meeting. I think we were trying to determine whether WSP could be used.
Okay.
I don't think that's resolved yet, Ashley. Do you have any insight there?
I do not.
I've been communicating with the town attorney and the supervisor, and Ashley's in the loop as well. Simply has to do with the code.
Okay.
WSP representing the town. So WSP ended up owning both Leggett Brashears and Louis Berger, and so we're just trying to resolve that.
Okay.
So that's why.
Okay, well, that wasn't even really my ultimate, was that upon the town's hydrogeologist's, I guess, approval or concurrence with the plan, whenever it gets there, I just want to let the board know we'd be applying for a permit through the building department to
Oh,
go
to
up- to drill.
drill a well?
Yes. So we would be building a gravel road
Okay,
up and through there, and then we would hit, there's 2 well locations we have to drill and test for the health department requirements.
yeah, what do we need to see, if anything? That's kind of, so seeker in general doesn't allow you to make alterations to the property once you've started, the seeker process, but I think a type 2 action is when you're doing studies related to
That's, I mean, yeah, we have to get the rig
the
in there,
project.
so.
Yeah, so, is it basically the gravel road, to what extent is that already disturbed, and you're gonna have to get to the wells are gonna require tree cutting or not?
No.
Nothing like that?
No. there's-
Okay. Is it just a building permit, or what
I
does?
believe Ben requires a building permit for each well.
Okay,
Yes. Yeah, Ben, I'd spoke to Ben. He said we would need to do a plan, show where the gravel road would, so where access would come from, put up erosion sediment controls, identify the well locations, and then submit a permit, an application for each well. But I wanted to let the board know that that's what has to get done to get up there to drill those wells when the time comes.
well, I appreciate the disclosure, and if there is a map that's put together, just make sure it gets sent to the planning board, so we know.
Sure.
Your wells are specifically for this project only, correct?
Correct. So what
Okay.
happens is, we sent the plan to the health department. They have to sign off. They choose the wells. Usually they choose one on one end of the property and one on the other. So they've chosen, I think, Lot 6 and Lot 2. So normally what we've done in the past is we try to find a route in that's already kind of established. We don't have that. So Orange and Rockland will not allow us to bring the rig up their easement. So the construction, I believe, in the village of Monroe is slated to begin soon for the road. So that road would bring us up to the property line, and then we would build a gravel road mimicking where our road location is, and follow that to the wells.
So there's no need for blasting, there's no need for rock removal
No,
or
we
anything
wouldn't,
to
we
put
wouldn't
it in?
actually grade it out. They would just place stone.
Stone down to get up to
So that
it.
the rig won't get stuck.
Okay. I think that's reasonable.
I think if it's going where.
Yeah.
Get to that, then.
Okay.
That's what I was hoping.
Okay. All right.
Else, board member?
Okay.
All right, so we'll probably see you next month?
Yes.
Okay, just let us know when you want to get on the agenda, and Noreen will let you know the in-by date.
Yep, no problem. All right.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Make sure, this in electronic digital format.
I don't feel like I had that either. I didn't find anything.
Me neither.
I mean, we were kind of short from when, we got the agenda to, and I'm not sure if this relates to this, but when you sent the agenda as revised agenda, I never found an original agenda. So I don't know if
The
we,
original probably went to Bonnie.
maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Jeff, too, because that's why I'm not sure if I'm getting everything. So I sort of revised, and then I didn't see these plans, so I wasn't able to review them before the meeting, so.
Yeah, I was.
I know that's what usually happens. Right. But.
Want to come in and pick up your copies there and there, I can take 2 minutes.
No, but I think we should just make the packages, when everything comes in, literally, and put them in the folder.
They'll be over the minutes, we can make a copy
I'll make a motion.
If that motion comes with a conditional approval, you have no argument from me.
I think I'm mad at him because I made him last.
All right, welcome.
Hello, everyone. It's been a long time, and before we start, it's good to see everyone in person, and I'm assuming that means everyone's healthy and doing well, so I'm glad it's good to see. Yes, so it's been a while since we've been here, and actually it's been a while since we got the ZBA variance requested, well, version of it requested. So we had completed the process here with the planning board regarding most of the items, and then the parking in the front yard had become a concern. So we referred to the zoning board. We went through the process with the zoning board, and basically what they approved was a third parking space in the front yard, since we had 2/3 of that area already allocated from the original design. So they granted us a third parking space. Along with that condition, the remaining 5 parking spaces were placed beyond the front yard setback. And that satisfied the code, it satisfied the requirements needed to continue on with the process. I believe you all got the ZBA final resolution, which granted us, I believe it was about 50 square feet that was needed to complete that third space. Along with moving the 5 spaces beyond the front yard setback, they requested a few items. Had to do with drainage, with a catch basin. Because of the change in elevation at the back of the 5 spaces, we needed to introduce a retaining wall. The difference in grade there is approximately 3.5 to 4 feet, so it's not that big a retaining wall, probably about this tall, and we showed a detail for that. That brings us here, and I hope everyone received our plans and the cover letter, which just outlined everything that was discussed. I just received Sean's comments here from the, regarding the project, and we can go through it, it's not a problem. If you'd like to go through it item by item, I don't see anything that's critical or that's can't be addressed in a readily fashion.
When I had that substance, zoning board of appeals grant the parking in the front yard. So they just wanted a note to the effect that only parking allowed in the front yard would be in those 3 spaces. So that should be added to the plans. There are a number of technical items in my comment number 3 with the bullets. I don't know if you want me to run through those or.
Sure.
So there's an existing retaining wall that's shown in the limits of the proposed parking space. Where the limits at the end of the the top and bottom of the proposed retaining walls for the parking spaces should be provided. There's a drainage required. Wanted to make sure have an impact on the set somewhat down charging. The plan indicates that there's going to be some landscape lighting, so a detail of the proposed lights should be included. Driveway extension. Detail for the riprap outlet control and the drainage pipe. as well as a detail for the the detail for the retaining wall shows that there's topsoil behind the wall when in fact it's going to be paving, so that needs to be addressed. The detail for the retaining wall also includes a fence behind the wall, which is, I understand is a building code requirement when the walls are higher than 30 inches. So that detail for the fence should be included. There's a detail for a bollard, but it's not clear where the bollards are shown. And that was the last of the technical items. Procedurally, the board previously held and closed a public hearing. It was previously referred to Orange County Department of Planning with a local determination response by them, and it previously had a negative declaration under secret.
Do you have any comments or questions with regard to Sean's comments?
Nothing of major impact. There is no existing retaining wall that needs to be removed. I think that was a layover from a previous design.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, that's a graphic misnomer we'll take care of. And everything else, I mean, the landscape lighting, there's no real detail of it. It's just he has landscape lighting along the ground, just highlighting pathways. There's no poles, no building-mounted lights, no pole-mounted lights. It's just
You're just home
your typical
type.
Yeah,
Pushing the ground solar.
exactly.
Okay.
Low-lying, close to the ground. So I can clarify that in a cover letter, in our next submission, or
Yeah, when we go through the resolution, I think we deal with lighting. We'll see, that, only that which is shown there is what's being approved. So if they wanted to put more lighting in, then
No.
there'd be an amendment.
They believe me, they don't.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on Sean's comments?
No,
Straightforward?
No more
Okay.
comments. We can address these in an easy fashion.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Ashley?
Nothing for me. You have a draft resolution for a couple that, back and forth, but you have the most recent one that was sent this evening to the board.
Okay. So let me ask board members, does anyone have any additional comments or questions or on the plans?
I have one.
Okay.
In relation to the prohibition about there being parking in the front yard area aside from in the 3 spaces, and I'm not really sure what's appropriate here. If it was purely a commercial facility, I'd say you'd put some kind of marking in the area where parking would be prohibited other than the 3 spaces. This is a mix of a residential and gathering place. Would there be an appropriate solution to somehow indicate to those visiting the site that they can't park in these prohibited areas? Or that's really up to the owner of the facility to manage?
I mean, ultimately, it's going to be enforced by the building department. I think the way the parking lot is laid out, it's going to be clear where you can park and not, because basically the extent of the asphalt is where you're going to be parking. So, but I think it's important to add the note just so that it's enforceable by the building department.
That was my only.
So I'll bring up on the screen so Ashley can see it as well, the resolution. Can you see that, Ashley? Okay. So Ashley drafted oh, wait, that's Verizon Wireless. Here we, yeah, I think that's the one no, those are plans.
No, I don't.
So this is the draft as of March 11, 21, resolution of approval for a site plan and special use permit for Kingsville Synagogue. So I'm going to mostly paraphrase this. Actually, let me enable editing in case something pops up that someone wants to mention. So the applicant is Kingsville Synagogue. Is that the actual applicant? That's the owner, Kingsville Synagogue? That's the name? Okay. I didn't think to look at that. Has applied for approval of a site plan and issuance of a special use permit for the property to operate a gathering place as regulated specifically by, references a section of the zoning chapter. Applicant proposes to convert the basement of an existing single-family dwelling into a gathering place. The property involved is located on Kingsville Drive, shown on the tax maps of the town of Monroe as tax parcel 1-1 4.32. This property is within the RR1 zoning district. It goes on to recite the plans and various information that was submitted upon which we're relying for this determination. We have the history. The date of the application, was submitted April 25th, 2018. We did hold a public hearing, which was convened on April 16th, 2019, and ultimately closed on June 18th, 2019. A variance was issued by the Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals on July 28th, 2020, to allow the 3 parking spaces to be located in the front yard. Seeker, this matter was an unlisted action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and we as lead agency made a negative declaration on April 16th, 2019, completing our seeker analysis. The application was referred to the Orange County Planning Department for review and report. Planning Department reported this was a matter of local determination, so there's no conditions that we have to be concerned with. This was also referred to the Village of South Blooming Grove pursuant to 239 NN of the General Municipal Law for comment, and they did offer comments. Findings: Planning Board determines that approval of the site plan and special use permit will substantially serve the public convenience, safety, and welfare, will not be detrimental to the neighborhood or the residents thereof, will not otherwise be detrimental to the public convenience or welfare, subject to compliance in full with the conditions hereinafter imposed. So those are just various general statements about the special use permit and site plan approval. Use is specifically authorized as a special use in the district where it's located. It's compatible with adjoining neighborhoods and with the natural and built environment. It is accessible to fire, police, and other emergency vehicles. It is suitable upon consideration of its scale and intensity in relation to environmentally sensitive features. Adequate screening and separation distances are provided to provide a buffer to adjacent properties. Existing lighting will not negatively impact adjoining properties. Use will not negatively impact ambient noise levels, generate excessive dust or odors, release pollutants, generate glare, or cause nuisances. Parking is sufficient so as not to create a nuisance or traffic hazard on adjacent properties or roads. Vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation, including levels of service and roadway geometry, will be safe and adequate to serve the special use. Location, arrangement, size, and design of the special use, including all principal and accessory buildings and structures associated with same, are compatible with the character of the neighborhood, will not hinder or negatively impact use, enjoyment, or operation of adjacent properties and uses. Utilities, including stormwater, wastewater, water supply, solid waste, snow removal storage areas, are adequate to serve the special use. It will not negatively impact the visual, scenic, or historic character of the town of Monroe or its environs, and has incorporated features into the design of the special use to achieve the objectives. Building's architecture is consistent and suitable with the neighborhood. Landscaping has been integrated and includes a mix of undisturbed woodland and areas not used for building, parking, or driveways will be revegetated and landscaped. Additional specific findings regarding the gathering place special use permit. Property contains a single-family detached dwelling that may be used as a gathering place. The owner or the tenant consisting of an individual or family must reside on the site and a condition to this effect is included with this resolution. Lot size conforms to the requirements of the zone in which it's located, and the variances were granted. This gathering place must comply with all applicable sections of the New York State Uniform Code, and a condition to this effect is included within this resolution. New York State Uniform Code will be used to determine potential maximum occupancy limits. Occupancy will be determined upon review of the narrative provided with the special permit application and the specifics of the site. No guarantee that the maximum occupancy calculated pursuant to the then current New York State Uniform Code will be permitted, as it's subject to substantive and reasoned review by the building inspector to determine the appropriate maximum number. Narrative submitted includes a general description of the proposed use, including the days and times of operation. In addition, a floor plan has been provided indicating the location of area where assembly will occur and providing the additional information as required in the New York State Uniform Code. All plans have been prepared by a New York State licensed design professional. Applicant has been notified that the special permit will remain in effect for 1 year and must be renewed upon expiration, or it shall be deemed expired. Affidavit of new change may be presented to the building inspector to allow for renewal without the requirement of a further public hearing upon the requested renewal. So those are just to continue the use. You'll go to the building department. Permit is based upon the information submitted at the time of the application. Any change to the use, ownership, and characteristics of the presented will necessitate filing for a revised permit for review and determination. And existence of a prior permit is not a guarantee of renewal. Parking, applicant has maximized parking spaces on the site. No on-street parking is permitted on state or county roads. In this instance, it's actually a village road. Should we make mention of the fact, do we need to say anything about village roads? I guess that's actually related to the special use permit.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's a statute in the local law, but
Right.
you have something within the conditions that no parking can be on the village road.
Okay, thank you. Does not permit on-street parking on any other roads or off-site parking. Keeps advancing. Planning board has determined the required number of parking spaces consistent with the proposed assembly and current parking requirements for places of assembly within the town. Finds that the number of spaces are adequate. You provide the minimum effective lighting to permit safe operation. You must maintain the appearance of the typical residence to the maximum extent possible. Signs are not permitted, and a condition to this effect is included within the resolution. Grandfathering of existing gathering places without approvals is not permitted. Applicant has complied with the requirements as seeker. Plan does not identify any necessary public improvements, therefore it's a determination of the planning board that a public improvement security agreement is not required. So resolution. Specific conditions. Approval is subject to a final engineering review of the plan set. Plan should not be signed until receipt of a letter from the planning board engineer certifying that deficiencies noted in his memo of March 11, 2021, we'll have to add that in, have been remedied to his satisfaction, and that he has found the plans submitted for signature to be in proper order. All conditions attached to the grant of variance issued by the Town of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals are made a part of this approval. Owner of the tenant, consisting of an individual or family, must reside on site at all times. Gathering place must comply at all times with all applicable sections of the then current New York State Uniform Code. You must comply with all maximum occupancy limits. It will remain in effect for 1 year and must be renewed upon expiration with the building inspector. Permit is based upon the information submitted at the time of application. Any change to the use, ownership characteristics, etc., as presented will necessitate filing for a revised permit for review and determination. Gathering place must maintain the appearance of a typical residence. Signs are not permitted. Any lighting shall be dark sky compliant and fully shielded from review. Any LED lights shall not exceed 2700 Kelvin. Shall be no...
Honey, should that say fully shielded from view?
Any lighting shall be dark sky compliant and fully shielded from view. From view. Any LED lights, so we'll make that revision in the final version. Okay, great. There should be no vehicular or pedestrian access over the walking path to the rear of the property. All vehicular and pedestrian access to the gathering place must be from Kingsville Drive. All individuals driving to the gathering place shall park in the parking spaces shown on the plan. No on-street parking or off-site parking is permitted by this approval. This approval relies upon a drainage study or other evaluations by the planning board based upon the structure size shown on the plans. No building permit for a structure larger than as shown on the plans will be issued unless a new drainage study satisfactory to the planning board engineer has been submitted and approved. Actually, if it was larger, I guess it's implied that it, of course, have to come back to the planning board, not just reviewed by the planning board engineer. No disturbances to the lot are permitted beyond that shown on the approved site plan. No C of O shall be issued until all improvements in landscaping is completed. This approval is for the gathering place and scope and contour of the proposal as described in the project narrative of Alter Wagshaw, prepared by the applicant and attached to this resolution. And that's where it said attendance at prayer services and lectures shall not exceed 18 persons. Outdoor fixtures. These are sort of standard conditions. It allows only what's shown thereon. Applicant shall remove the keypad, electrical gate, and electrical control panel, and all dumpster and improvements located in the Village of South Blooming Grove right-of-way. No fences or gates are being approved by this resolution. Then we have our general conditions, that you have to submit all necessary copies to be signed, including Mylars, to the Town of Monroe Building Department within 180 days of the date of this approval. This approval is further conditioned upon all other approvals that are needed. Approval is further conditioned upon the applicant delivering prior to signing of the plat proof in writing that all fees and expenses owed to the town for all land use applications are fully paid. Fully completed entity disclosure statement signed and either sworn to or affirmed by the applicant referenced above is on file with this board. And it goes into requirements for transferring. And a failure to comply with any such condition in a timely manner shall result without further action and a lapsing of this approval. So with that, are there any additional, are there revisions or additional conditions or discussion that the board would like to have with regard to the resolution? Jason? Jeff?
Thanks, Bonnie.
Okay. We're all good. So with that, I'll offer this resolution and move that it be adopted, subject to the couple of revisions that we made that were noted during our reading of the resolution. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Anthony? Noreen? Aye?
Aye.
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 And with that, the resolution is approved, the action is approved, and,
Lisa wasn't there, or did I mishear?
huh?
Did she say Lisa wasn't there, or did I mishear?
Lisa was here, and she left around 8:40.
All right, I know she was there before.
Yes, she was. Yep. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I have just one question. With the remaining comments, can I send the plans directly to Sean for review and
And send the plans to Sean with a copy CC'd to Noreen and to Ashley.
Okay, electronically.
Yes. Yep. And then if we need to distribute it, then Noreen can distribute the digital copy that she receives.
Great.
All right?
Thank you, everyone. Have
Thank
a great
you.
evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Congrats. All right. Real quick, Ward, you're here. Is there anything you wanted to bring up as far as anything involving the Monroe
Thank you, Ward
Commission?
Bauer. One point of clarification. I'm going to speak generically. The Conservation Commission walked the property, I'm not going to mention the property, December 30th. We had a consultant for the town wetlands, Dave Thompson,
Okay.
and then 2 members of the Conservation Commission, and then the applicant's wetland expert. What we did discover was on, I'm not going to mention the direction or anything, On the wetlands buffer, there had been some violations. Half dozen saplings of 2 inches in diameter or bigger were cut down. And then a tree that's probably 75 to 100-year-old oak had numerous holes drilled completely around it, chain drilled around it, I presume to inject herbicides into it. Now, this is all speculation. I don't believe the applicant had anything to do with this. I believe it's probably an indication of probably a neighbor did this, but we don't know. So I ran it by the enforcement officer. I said, we have a violation, we're obligated to report it. And the officer said, coming before the planning board, let them deal with it. Well, I don't know if it's your jurisdiction or not, but someone ought to deal with this incident.
So, is this particular property where you did the site visit, is it currently in front of this board?
Yes.
We're talking about Meadow Hill?
Pardon me?
Are we talking about Meadow Hill?
I'm not mentioning that, I don't want to confirm anything, but it's a good possibility.
Okay. So at this point in time, it is in front of us. The seeker process has began. There aren't supposed to be any alterations or changes, unless we're made aware of them, as John Queenan did with telling us about the gravel driveway. Anything regarding the trees that are on site, we'd have to look at the tree preservation section of the code and see whose jurisdiction it is. On the one hand, it's in front of us, so I think it's important for us to know. And if you could maybe take pictures or send to us information about where this occurred and what tree you're referring to, I'd like to have that information.
Yeah, we'll document that and I'll get it to you.
Okay. And then I think your broader question is with regard to, in addition, should there be enforcement? And because it's part of the code, the zoning chapter, who is it the responsibility of to enforce, whether it's wetland violations or tree, et cetera. So all I can say is that thank you for the information.
And my gut feeling is a sidebar, that first of all, you'd have to have evidence someone did this. That would be, let's say owners, to say it at least. I have a sort of a offhand, common sense approach. I think if the enforcement department were to ask all the adjacent property members or owners, had they seen any activity on this property, all that would do is it'd send a heads up, and I think this activity would cease and desist. Once the perpetrators know that, we're watching this thing, because otherwise we can't prove who did it.
Yeah, I mean, the property in question is a vacant property, correct?
Right, it's a vacant property, but...
So, I mean, there's not an existing house there that
here's the thing, apparent to our observations, the four of us who were there.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious that the neighboring property has a garden, and the garden was being shaded by all this vegetation.
Okay.
So, but we want to make accusations. So I think if all of you, if enforcement officer were to blanket all the property owners and say, do you have any information? Have you heard any? I think once you give them a heads up, I think the activity will cease and desist without any further ado.
Okay.
That's just my recommendation.
Yeah. Or maybe even something to consider would be a flyer that says, in the town of Monroe, there's a section of the code called XYZ.
Right.
And the, cutting, altering, harm to trees of XYZ would be a violation, or says something to that effect. So because we don't know, but at least maybe we'll inform people of that through like a little flyer that maybe we could put in their boxes or something. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, because it's my gut feeling that the applicant had nothing to do with this. they're actually been victimized. They're a victim of this. So, and as we say, we have no way of doing any kind of surveillance, and that's onerous on. I think a heads up, like you suggested, would probably remedy the situation.
Yeah, it might just be it would be a good educational exercise. I was going to write it down on my, just trying to find my agenda. But Noreen, remind me tomorrow in an email. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Ward.
You're welcome.
Sure. I think with that, we just have some minutes. No. No minutes?
Yes.
I thought we had the 2 sets of minutes.
You also have the notice of the public scoping session that.
Oh, sorry. I don't have the agenda up. Okay.
You don't have an agenda?
No, I didn't have the agenda up. Yeah, no, I didn't have it up. All right. So, has everybody received the notice, or, okay, sure.
This application was before the Village of Monroe Zoning Board of Appeals, which I am a member of.
Okay.
Should I be offering comments on this, or,
Do you need to,
I guess is my question, do I need to recuse myself?
I think you had, I'm thinking back to, because this was discussed, I think, when they first maybe sent it to the planning board. as
Right.
an Agency, and I think you did recuse and decided that you were going to be involved on this village PDA side.
So in that case, I will be stepping out and recusing myself from these discussions.
so what's the protocol? Normally they go, Jason would go stand or sit in the audience, correct?
Yes.
No, normally you sit right in the audience. Thank you. All right, so this is a notice of public scoping. And what is the date of the scoping session?
I'm really,
All right. And I guess the question is, do we want to offer up any comments as part of the public scoping session, or should we just? Do we need to respond as were we made an interested or involved agency?
I believe you were named an interested agency.
Yeah, well, I was. So this is the one that Tony sent out through an email.
Oh, so I don't have it here tonight.
I have a hard copy, but you
That's
should
good.
have it all in your email, because it came in the mail today.
Ashley, what? Ashley,
Or actually, it's calling you involved, but I don't know.
let me find it.
I don't remember what Tony's email was that he wanted you to.
Was it from Tony?
Tony sent, well, Jen sent it, because Tony hadn't sent it out.
Okay, Jen sent it.
Well, no, it's gonna be,
Oh, that's
because it
right.
went to your
I
other address.
You needed a site, you have site plan approval over a drainage pipe.
So who, did you forward it to us? Okay.
No, we had gotten this back, it came from, I believe, I guess, the village of Monroe.
Yeah, but it came, I sent it out to everybody. I feel like I'm losing my.
Resolution. March 3rd? And it came from
From Noreen.
Noreen?
Noreen.
Okay, hold on. Oops, wrong one. I have March 4th. deck, draft scoping doc. So why don't we bring up the scoping document? deck, it's a type 1 action. Business Center at 208 and Gilbert Street Extension. Involves proposed mixed commercial use building consisting of 47,500 square feet of retail on the first floor and 25,000 square feet of offices on the second floor. Site is approximately 5 acres in size, parking for approximately 59 vehicles, which is proposed along stormwater management facilities. Access is proposed via entrance and exits onto State Route 208 and Gilbert Street Extension, proposed to be served by water service, et cetera. It's in the GB zoning district. It adjoins the town of Monroe Park at Orange and Rockland Lake. And then they give the reasons why it may have a significant adverse effect. Scoping will be conducted. Public scoping session has been scheduled as a virtual meeting on Zoom to discuss it on March 23rd at 7 p.m. Okay. All right. Everybody has it. Although this looks like it's a draft date adopted to be filled in, right? So, as an involved agency, then, we can comment on the public scoping document. Since it's on the 23rd, I would suggest, has everybody reviewed this document? No? No? Yes? No? So, what's our agenda like next week? Nothing?
Nope, these are the only projects that were submitted for this month.
Okay.
It was tonight, so that's why I added this to this.
Yeah. And
And I don't remember what Tony had wanted from you. I think Tony wants somebody to go on that Zoom call.
just to be on the Zoom call?
I believe that's what his comment was. I'd have to go back to that email, and my computer's frozen right now.
So if we don't have any other items for Tuesday, I don't necessarily want to add a meeting on just for this. But what I would suggest then is perhaps everybody can, by a certain date, send their comments to Ashley. Would that make sense, Ashley? And then if we want to prepare a letter on behalf of the board, we can put something together to submit as part of the public scoping process? Or do you think we should meet and discuss this?
It would be best for you to meet, because if everyone, it's coming from the board, the entire board doesn't agree with all the comments.
Right. And I think the timing is such that we can't wait till next month, so, all right. My suggestion would be since,
Is there an offer for something, or?
hmm?
I mean, is this Tuesday meeting a conflict for anyone, or?
No, no. You know what, we'll have the meeting and we'll go over this.
Okay.
So,
You want to do the minutes that night with it, so that it makes you...
yeah, we'll do the minutes, because we have that extra set that you sent us.
Yeah, only because when I was getting stuff upstairs, I realized it had never been sent.
Okay. So let's then meet on Tuesday.
Okay.
And we'll go over this scoping document. Gives us a little time to consider where this is and what's going on.
And 3 sets of minutes.
All right? Make sense?
If you want, Marie, I'll send the other documents that we got back in, when they sent the agency notice, they sent an initial site plan, things that were available.
Yeah, I think if whoever has the site plan, that'd be useful to take a look at this. Okay. Very good. Any other, so Jason, we don't have any other discussion on that, right? We'll just take it up. And then Jason, you don't even have to show up if you don't want to. Unless except for the minutes. You have to show up for the minutes. Lucky you. All right, so with that then, as far as our agenda, I think that was the last item, right? Okay. So we will hold off on minutes. So with that, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Before we do that, just want to ask a question about the organization and distribution. And I don't know if this is the right forum. I mean, if Noreen, you want me to call you tomorrow or talk to Bonnie.
I think we should.
And I don't know if other board members have the same questions, but, I have a vague idea of, when applications are due to Noreen and when they're submitted and when the plans are due. But, I don't know.
Right.
So if I had an idea of what the calendar is, like, when we get the submittals, and then I know if I'm missing something, I can call Noreen and let her know I didn't get something.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be helpful. I'm just a little confused on that.
Yeah, I think we need maybe something that at the in-by date, we have a list of what's been submitted, and that you'll put the packages together and include the list of what's been submitted, so that if everybody gets that via email, the list, that's also the opportunity to tell everybody that the package is ready. So if like the in-by date is I don't know, is it typically a Monday, or it just depends? It's okay. So if the in-by date is like Thursday, then I think by Monday, we should get a list of what's been submitted, and then packages, should be ready to go. And then you could let us all know, we'll have the list, and then maybe.
So if somebody wants to be on tonight's meeting, they have to get the information to Noreen by the week before, or is that 2 or 3 weeks
No.
before?
Do you not have the calendar?
No.
Yeah, there's a.
You should have the annual calendar that you approved back in January.
Okay.
So.
The calendar tells you when the 2 meetings are and when the submission date is. Submission is by noon on that date. They have to have the hard copies in the bins, they have to have the PDFs come in. Sometimes I give them 2 o'clock, they call me and say they're running a little late, that's fine. I just don't want them running in at 4 o'clock with all their stuff.
Right. I mean, there have been some exceptions where we may allow someone to submit something a little later.
Sure, yeah,
but
and I have the calendar. I
circumstances-
wasn't sure, because like tonight, something I learned. I didn't realize now Verizon was on, but their formal meeting is not this Tuesday, it's the following month.
Yeah.
So, they may have to have something due by Thursday. I do have the calendar, but I wasn't sure,
Right.
which month we're pertaining to. And it just helps for organization, so I
Right.
know what I'm missing. And then the other thing is, for whatever it's worth, I'm good with digital copies. I just need to know if I got it. I don't plan on picking up paper copies.
I like paper copies.
Then I can just drop one from their list because I don't need 4 extra cents sitting in my office.
Right.
I
Okay.
got a bonfire in there.
Yeah, so.
I'll be the.
All right, so why don't we raise hands? We'll, for now, assume that Lisa wants paper copies until you can talk to her.
The last time I did this, she wanted paper.
She wanted paper? Yeah. Okay. So raise your hands if you like paper.
Well, Sean, that wasn't even, I didn't even think about you, Sean.
And even so,
Now,
even
I
with.
think, I think Ashley and Sean should definitely have paper.
they're
And then
definitely on the paper.
whoever of us wants paper.
I know you do.
Jeff does. And you said Jason, yes?
I'm not dealing with that.
That's fine. Can I get both, paper and digital?
You all get digital automatically.
Yeah.
I get it on
It's
digital,
the
I'll
paper.
turn around and send it right from their website.
Yeah, it's the paper. But I think what would happen, I think what would be beneficial is that on this list, if it could be like a table, a matrix, that, that Noreen sent digital X day, paper copies came in X day.
Sure, and
just
when
so it
Sean
tracks
puts
it.
together a legal and engineering review, that doesn't always occur for every project that comes to us on that particular night, right?
Well, typically, you get it to us a couple days beforehand. That's customary, and they're usually sent digitally to us. Yeah. I mean, a lot of this is, in fairness to everybody, COVID has made us all nuts about distributions and when, and I just know personally,
I agree to that.
I feel,
I quarantine everything for 24 hours before I bring it to my office. So if submission is Thursday, it stays in that box on Friday.
yeah.
Because I have to, for personal reasons, it stays up there. Sean called me one day, I came down, put it in front of my door, and I thought he went in the way to see if I came out, he goes, we have quarantine, I'm like, oh, my bag, yes, it's out of quarantine, because he knows I quarantine it.
So,
Would the following Monday be sufficient time then to put that together, or?
Yeah, because once
Okay.
it's in my office, it either goes on the shelf until the packets come upstairs, or I can put it right there in the packets, put the rubber bands on it, and put it in the bins.
yeah, you can collate it and then put it in the bins, and people pick them up. And they're going to be less of them if not everybody wants paper copies.
Right, if Anthony doesn't want a paper copy and John doesn't want a paper copy, then it's two less that I have to do.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, well, that's when they come in, they're like, the ones from DG, they were so big they didn't even go in the envelope. Sean doesn't even get an envelope anymore.
Do they give them to you already folded and everything, right?
Yes, they do.
Okay. I was gonna say, that'd be insane if you have to fold. Yeah. And then, again, in fairness to all the planning board members, to the extent we can, Ashley does the resolutions in advance, and so you have a couple days to consider it. But like I say, COVID has made everything upside down.
Well, the last meeting, we also got the Monroe Commons package. Did we get something for the scoping on that binder?
Monroe Commons? The final scoping document? That was a while ago. When was Monroe Commons?
I don't want to confuse things, but we got a binder of material and maps at the end of the meeting. It was 2 meetings ago.
May not.
I'll let you know. Sorry.
So.
I do apologize, I was late on, I try to get the resolutions, ideally I'd like to get the GOs to meet.
Yeah, but you were away.
Yeah, she sent it to me at 4:04, so.
Yeah. Well, I was doing my little thing to it, so I was editing.
So, and then when I send the minutes out to you guys, if you want to read them over and give changes, I'll make the changes before we come into the meeting. Like Bonnie said something the other day, I've already made those changes. And then that way, you just do the final, and I go back to the office and and click, and release them to the Never Never Land.
I think it's like I said, in this time of COVID, it's just sometimes hard tracking things that are coming in, the digital versions, the paper versions. Sometimes things are being sent to your house, they're being sent to your, I know personally, it's hard to stay organized. I don't know why, it just has been difficult, so, but we'll do better.
I have more checklists on my desk that as soon as it's done, I have to throw it out, otherwise, I have lists everywhere, so, but, yeah, no, you should. So, like, this month is the 25th. So, the 25th, by the end of 4 o'clock, anybody that sent a digital in, you'll have it in your box. For the April, whatever that night meeting is.
Anybody else have anything they want to bring up? No? All right, there was a motion, I think.
Well, we started it, I don't think we ever got beyond.
A second? Second? Anybody?
First.
Oh, Pat.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.